You are listening to Talk Pretty Real Estate with your host, Beth Pretty. Beth has over 15 years of experience helping people with their real estate needs, and she understands that real estate is more than just selling and listing homes. It's about opening doors and changing lives. And now your host, Beth Pretty.
Hey listeners, welcome to Talk Pretty Real Estate Podcast. I'm so thrilled that you're going to be joining us, and I'm super excited because this is our very first episode. So thank you for being brave and courageous and listening. And I want to thank all of our guests that are going to be coming on in the future episodes. And I would like to give a shout out to our producer, Mike Resendez with Studio 77.
Thank you.
Yes, he's awesome. He is, well, we're actually going to have him on for an episode, so you'll learn more about him later.
Doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah, I'm doing a podcast, so thank you for pushing me, forcing me to do this. But I just want to thank you for joining us. And, this podcast is going to be growing. I hope our audience grows, and you're going to be part of that process. So thank you. And if you get a chance, whatever podcast service you're listening to, if you could go and maybe leave us a review, 5-star review would be the best. We would love that so much if you like what you're hearing. Our goal for the podcast is to introduce you to the real estate world. We're going to talk about investing. We're going to talk about preparing your listing. We're going to talk about working with buyers, some crazy stories in real estate. But I also want to talk about how do you become a realtor if that's your jam. And also we're going to even talk to some kids and spouses of realtors so you can hear a little bit about what they can expect. And if you're going to become a realtor, you need to know what to do to prepare with your spouse and your kids. So let's get started. And I am super excited to introduce our first guest. I would not have invited anybody other than her to be the first because she is courageous. She's funny. She's kind. And whenever I have a bad day, she's a friend, so let me mention that part too. So when I have a bad day, I give her a call and we just let it rip. Yes. So I'm super excited to have Jill Johns with Transformations by Jill on today. And Jill, you're a stager.
I am a stager and I love it. And by the way, I looked up how long you and I have been partnering. October of 2013. 9 years.
Wow.
9 years.
Wow.
So I've only been in business for 10, and we've been together for 9 of it. So I'm thrilled.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so what is behind you? I know you can't really tell, but I'm going to tell you. Tell us, what is your favorite city or place to visit?
Let's see. That's tough. I love to travel, and I've been overseas. I've been all over the United States. I think probably Tuscany. Mm-hmm. I love that. My father took my whole family, all my siblings, to a cooking school in Tuscany. And during the day we would sightsee, and at night we would cook our meals and be taught how to cook our meals. And it was incredible. And we got to see a lot of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I always say this incorrectly, but like Cinque Terre, it's 5 cities. It's right on the water.
Well, our Italian producer, maybe he could
Cinque Terre, something
help
like
us.
that. It was.
I would talk to my mother, not me.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a city that typically everybody gets there by water, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful there, and the food is amazing, and it's old, and there's all this history, and I just love it.
If your left hand is not moving in motion of eating, then you're not having a good time.
Right.
That's the whole deal. Mm-hmm.
I gotcha. Well, behind you is your favorite city.
Oh, I love that.
So this is something we'll be doing with our podcast. Every guest will be featuring their favorite place to visit. So check out Tuscany. I have been to Italy. I've been to Rome, and I've been to Venice. And Sirmione, I always pronounce that wrong, but I have not been to Tuscany, so I'll put it on the bucket list.
Put it on.
Well, you are actually here to talk about staging.
Yes, please.
As Jill's mentioned, she's been my stager for
9 years.
9 years, and I've been in the business for almost 15. Staging has not been part of my business the entire time. I didn't start out having a stager because most realtors can't afford to have a stager as part of their business model. Although now I like to tell realtors you can't afford not to have a stager as part of your business model. So we'd like to hear a little bit about your background. How did
Sure.
you get into staging?
Sure. So I've always wanted to be an interior designer. And when I was in college, I can remember calling my mom and dad. I was going for information systems management. It's kind of a business technical.
That is that's a shock because
Well,
that's so far from
I
your
know.
personality.
And I really, at 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was like, these computers are up and coming, the personal computers. So I was like, okay, yeah, I guess. I had aptitude in math and things like that. So while I was there, I just really, my longing was interior design. So I called them and said, hey, I want to switch my major to interior design. And there was quiet on the phone. I think at this point I was probably a sophomore. And my dad said, well, that's great. Yes, sure. But after you graduate, when it's on your dime.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I ended up working in computer security for 20 years.
what?
Yep. I got a job in what I was trained to do in college, and I supported a very large corporation with policies, procedures, that sort of thing. And then I ended up being a HIPAA compliance officer for 3 years, which was very stressful. And during that 3 years, I was just praying for an opportunity to step into what I truly wanted to do, which was in interior design. And on
Well,
this,
I got to say, so this HIPAA compliance thing,
yeah.
I don't know about anybody else, but that's like my most annoying part of
yes.
going to
Yes.
a doctor, having to
Yes.
fill,
It's
okay.
awful, but when you need it, you need it.
Yeah, so you might have been disliked.
Oh yeah,
In that.
I was. People were getting fired based on my reports. When you're a compliance officer, you're testing to see who's doing what they need to be doing. But what it did teach me is how to deal with people.
Well,
So-
and how to have that tough conversation.
That's right.
How to have that sort of confrontational, potentially conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was in the corporate setting, in corporate boardrooms with all different kinds of personalities, even people overseas. So it really did teach me how to talk to people, how to be empathetic to people, and how, like you say, talk about the hard stuff. So I didn't know it was preparing me for what I was going to eventually love to do, but it did prepare me. So when I stepped out of being a HIPAA compliance officer into design full time, it was a cultural shock. I had jobs on the side as a part-time job. I was doing it for friends and family, and then their friends and family. I eventually decided I want certification, so I took a course and redesign. Redesign was a really big topic back then, and it had a staging module. And so I took this course, got my certification, and I was working with a realtor on redesigning her house. And I was doing room by room, and it probably took me a year to do room by room, and that's kind of comfortable how she wanted to do it. Then she contacts me and says, listen, I need to sell my house quick. I'm like, what? And so we pulled half of it out.
Quick.
Quick.
And what year is this?
This was 2012.
Yeah, it's not happening quick
No.
in 2012. Right,
No.
yeah.
So we pulled half of it out, and she was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was this much work. Because I think a lot of realtors who haven't moved themselves and had to put their homes on the market don't realize how much we're asking their clients to do. So half of it came out. It sold in 4 days. And
In
then
2012.
It did.
What was the price?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
No, I don't remember.
No, I don't remember.
I'm sure it would sell for twice as much today.
Oh,
though.
Yeah,
gosh, yes,
yeah.
Whatever
absolutely.
it sold for.
Yeah.
Well, and it was
Yeah.
in our own little neighborhood, so it's a desirable neighborhood. So I'm sure it sold for a great price. But then she started asking me to meet with her clients and do consultations and then stage their homes. So she really was the catalyst in getting me into this. And the more I did it, the more I was like, this is what I love to do. The design is good, but I really like this staging. It's a very quick result. I have more control over the desired outcome, and I just really loved it. So that's my background of how I got from, being a girl who really wanted to do it and kind of told no to I'm doing it.
So I'm going to get gossipy
Yes,
for a minute.
please.
Tell us the story of the worst house. Now, you may need to think about it for a second, but
I can chime on this one too.
what's the worst house you ever walked into to do a staging consultation?
Consultation. Okay, so typically a consultation it's occupied. Of course, I do a vacant property preview, but if it's occupied, it has to be cleanliness. It's usually lots of animals. You've heard of nose blind, where you can't really smell the property, so there's lots of interesting smells. And then they've gone decor blind, where they just don't see all the stuff that's piled up. So when you point it out, they're like, what? So it's probably has to do with that. And I've had a lot of those where I walk in and the realtor is depending on me to get that house shipshape. And for those properties, really the best we can do, it's really less about staging. It's more about getting them to clean up. So if you can get them to prep instead of showcase, well, you want the showcase, but if we can get them to prep, that's really where our value comes in. We want to make sure that they're cleaning, it smells good. You can't sell a house if it smells bad. You can't sell a house if there's ground in fecal matter in the carpets. No. I mean, it's an investor special if you do.
Right.
So, yeah, we have those houses, and, we tackle them as they come.
So can you share why, if you were giving a pitch to a group of new realtors
Sure.
and you're trying to convince them, hey, staging needs to be part of your business model,
Sure.
why? What would you tell them? Why is staging important for almost every seller?
Well, the number one reason why you are staging is marketing. It's a marketing tool. So you want as many tools in your toolbox as possible. And if it sets you apart from other realtors, that your listings are looking fabulous, then you're above your competition. So really, it's all about marketing. It's about outdoing your competition, because there's realtors behind every corner. And you really want to have a team of professionals, just like back in the day where the realtor would take their own pictures.
I was just going to say, isn't
Back in the day, there's still realtors who do that, Jill.
there
They use their
is.
cell phone.
Yes.
I would say, isn't the expectation changed in the past 15 years or so of what you do? Because I know, like, 10 years ago, it's different from now.
Yeah, absolutely. 10 years ago, it was, you really got to have a photographer. I would say it's probably the last 5 to 7 years that you really have to have a stager. Because, and if you have a good stager, then you're seeing a dramatic difference. If it's an okay stager, then maybe you're not seeing the transformation that you need to see. But so for new realtors, you want a team of people. You don't want to be the jack of all trades. You want to have a team of people you rely on that communicate really well with you and your clients. And after a while, you get to know each other like you and I know each other. So I know your expectations. So I deliver that.
Yeah, you know when I'm mad or when I'm
Absolutely.
thrilled or
Absolutely. And if Beth's mad, we tweak it, and I think
Did you say tweet it?
tweak? We tweak it.
she
and
may tweet it. I'm not following her on Twitter. Maybe I need to do that because she might be tweeting that.
I am not. I am not. That's not professional. So you want a professional. You want somebody who's in it as a business, not as a hobby, and you want results.
Well, here's what the reason I like to have a stager is because I don't want to be the one to tell them their baby's ugly, and their house is their baby. And so if I'm telling them their baby's ugly, the wall goes up, they're defensive. Now they're not going to listen to my pricing strategy. They're not going to listen to anything that I tell them from that point forward. Our relationship is confrontational. Right. And they may not even choose me.
Right.
I mean, when I go into a listing appointment, I am usually competing against 4 or 5 other realtors. So I have to show my value proposition, and no matter how nasty or wonderful the house is, I'm letting them know, oh, it's marketable, it's great, I love your house, I want to work with you, because I do. So I need the stager to go in and tell them their baby's ugly, and here's how we make their baby look better for school picture day. And let her do that. Let her have that relationship. And so, I feel like when you're choosing a stager, you need to have a stager who can have that tough conversation and doesn't mind doing it. So an overly soft stager, I don't know how else to say, too nice of a stager is not going to be able to do that. So then the realtor is going to have to be the bad guy.
That's right.
And I want the stager to be the bad guy.
And vice versa. You don't want a stager to come in and be abrupt or disrespectful.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Or, because I've been into several homes that they've used stagers in the past, and the homeowner is so nervous about my attitude and my how I'm going to deliver the information. They're a nervous wreck because in the past they've had stagers just tear their house apart.
Do you know that I made a video for my business just because of that?
Right.
As a send to the homeowner, like what to expect when I come.
Right.
Because of that same reason. I don't know if you still use it or not, but that's a huge thing. Because
Absolutely.
You want to set expectations,
You do.
and
yeah, because they're talking about it every morning since the booking, like what we have to do, and you can tell that they're angst and stuff like that. I'm like, I always have to tell them, okay, we're at the home stretch now.
Right.
This is where you get to relax.
Especially elderly clients. I really love working with elderly, and it's one of the reasons why I got into what I do is because my heart goes out to the elderly, and they're in a very difficult situation that usually a spouse is dying and they're having to downsize, or they're having medical issues and now they're having to go to assisted living, or whatever the case may be. So I especially love working with them and helping them to the next phase. Oftentimes it turns into a chat session where we're just kind of dreaming about what their next phase is. So not that I take a ton of time doing that because I have a job, but you need a professional who knows when to chat and when to make somebody comfortable. You also need a professional that needs to know when the client is shutting down, and then they need to come up a level. So maybe you're not giving all the different details, but maybe you're just saying, okay, we need to vacuum and wipe down and pack.
And I imagine the realtor plays a role in that as well, preparing you ahead of time of what that client might be like. And I think that's important for a realtor to do when you're using a stager. Is if you know there's going to be a problem, if you know the house is a hot mess, or you know that they have some physical challenge or financial challenge that's not going to allow them to get a storage space or hire movers. You want to set your stager up for success, not failure. So you need to let them know those things ahead of time. Right?
That's right. I find the more successful consultation, the better consultations are when the realtor has set it up. So they're saying, I'm going to send in my stager, and these are the type of things she's going to talk to you about. Just be prepared. Just remember, we're all part of one team, and the end goal is. That goes so much smoother than if the realtor doesn't set it up. If they don't say anything, oftentimes I walk in and go, okay, so did the realtor tell you what we'd be doing today? No. Okay, well, this is what we're going to be doing. And so, oftentimes they didn't allow enough time. They didn't realize we were going to go room by room. So it definitely goes much smoother.
So name 3 things that you feel every seller must do, no matter really what condition their property's in.
Sure.
What are 3 things that sellers must do in order to prepare their property for market?
2 different phases. One is a prep phase and one is a showcase phase. Sometimes all I can do is get them to do the prep because it's just so much work, or maybe we have a very limited time frame. So it's clean, pack, and prep. So it's like painting or carpeting.
Let's unpack the pack, because hearing the word pack, then they're like, oh my God, I got to pack up all my stuff. What are you talking about? So define pack.
So I have noticed over the last, let's say 5-7 years, sellers do not realize how much they need to pack to prep their home. There's lots of people who think, well, this is lovely. Why don't you like this? Well, it's cluttered, or there's collections all over the place, or there's inappropriate art on the walls. It could be political or religious. So there's a lot of that I want the home to be very neutral so that everybody feels very comfortable in the home. So most often I'm pack this. We want to clear off that countertop. We want to remove these 5 tables in the corner. So there's a lot of removing. And if we're removing, it has to go somewhere. So it's either going to go in the garage, it's going to go in a storage unit, it's going to go someplace.
So garage is fair game.
Absolutely.
To use as your staging area for staging. So the realtor perspective, however, is load up the garage, but you still need to make mechanical areas accessible to the home inspector. So you don't want to load things in front of the water heater, the air handler, the electrical panel, and at least allow 1 or 2 outlets to be exposed for the home inspector to get to. Otherwise, fair game, go to the ceiling.
That's right. I feel the same way about it. I'd much rather showcase the inside of the home than the garage. They can see it's a 1-car. They can see it's a 2-car. Now, if it has a fancy, workshop in it, then maybe we want to showcase that, or at least get a picture of it before we pack the garage.
If you've got the Closet Factory deal.
Right.
And by the way, I do recommend Closet Factory. If you use, you got the Closet Factory deal and the epoxy floor, yes, so we're not going to use that as your storage space.
Right, right. But that's few and far between.
Right.
So it's really that overarching, in almost every single occupied consultation, they're surprised at how much I'm asking them to pack. So I prepare them at the very beginning. Listen, this isn't like 10, 15 years ago where we can just sort of let it be.
Right.
We want to showcase. You're in competition with other homes, and your stagers should be talking to them about the competition. Your competition will have this. Your competition will have that. Your competition will be freshly painted.
Right. Well, so from my perspective, again, realtors, I always take pictures of the competition being what's sold, what's pending, and what's currently on the market. I actually take the pictures so they can see that this is what the buyers are looking for, and this is what we need to try to do or get as close to with your house, or exceed what those sellers did for their house.
Right. Yeah.
So when I meet with a client, I tell them, look, there are 3 things we're looking for in staging. We want to edit you out. So the family pictures, all the big display on your refrigerator, all that stuff needs to go away. And we want to make each space feel bigger.
That's
right. Because there is a buyer mentality of, my gosh, this place is so big. There's so much value because of the square footage.
Right.
And then third, I always say we want to give it that model home feel.
Yes, absolutely. So if we could get them past the prep and to the showcase part, then absolutely, that's how you get an emotional attachment. And I have been saying for the last 5-7 years, we're really trying to get that female. If we can get the female buyer to emotionally connect, we've got them. Because usually nowadays, they're the decision maker. If mama doesn't like it, it's not going to get purchased. So I really try to get to that female buyer, if possible. So if something's really overly masculine, or if we have a lot of dark wood paneling, we're painting that. We're going to try to edit some of that masculinity.
What about the posters of the Corvette?
Those come down. The political posters come down.
My Van Halen guitar.
Now if it's in a media room, then that's fine.
That's fine, because that's part of the staging.
That's right.
And we are in our producer's basement right now, Wayne's World.
No judging, because this room changes every other day.
Yes, I joke. I'm going to Wayne's World.
Yes.
Wayne's World.
Right.
So I always say, when a builder builds a model home,
yes,
and they hire a stager to come in and trick out that that model home, they're spending over $100,000
Oh, yeah.
in staging and decorating, just so
Absolutely.
you know. And I always say, look, if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
That's right.
So, because that's a heck of a lot of money that a builder is investing.
I got a question then.
Yes.
How much furniture do you rotate per year or per time period? Because things change and all that. Like over the years, you've obviously.
She has a
quarterly
big
have-
warehouse.
That's what I'm saying, warehouse.
Yeah,
So like, how much?
So you want the foundational pieces that don't, the classics. You want a classic sofa. You want classic end tables, headboards, things like that. The big pieces you want classic, so you can continually use them. But you want to be almost annually bringing in new trendy pieces that you
Right.
can intermix with the classics. Same goes for colors. I pay attention to what the colors of the year is
Yeah,
with
so
different vendors.
When we first started working together, beige was in. I mean,
Oh,
every
yeah.
time I asked Jill, what's the list?
Yeah.
You were giving me those 3 or 4 beiges, and now,
No, grays.
grays.
and
Well, it was
whites.
gray, and now I think we're more grayish and
Oh,
white.
yeah, absolutely. Grays
Yeah.
and whites.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for our accessories, we will, like when blush pink came out, we bought blush pink pillows, we bought blush pink comforters. Those are the easy things to bring in and less expensive things to
Sure,
bring
less
in,
for
but
your
yet
inventory.
it still feels fresh. So it's very expensive.
Same with your artwork too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you kind of, when we first started out, it kind of had that Kirkland's feel
That's right.
of the fall colors, but that's out now.
Right.
It's totally, we got the teals and the grays
That's
and the
right.
blues and the yellows. So.
That's
I've
right.
also seen it in different parts of the city where certain things are a little more trendy. Like
Sure,
down,
you're going to do the fan differently than you are the suburbs.
Yeah,
That's
like,
right.
I've seen some pieces where it's been staged and they have like a retro looking armoire or something like that, or something that looks kind of like, in the 60s or 70s. So,
Well, it's important that your stager understands, one, who the buyer's going to be, and two, the property. So there's lots of stagers in the area that have a brand, and I'm all for having a brand. That's great. But I'm also all for staging per the home. For example, we did a little apartment near VCU. It was obviously going to be a parent buying for their kids. So we made it look like a student housing. It was fun, it was funky, it was colorful. It wasn't, quote unquote, my brand. It was what needed to happen for that particular property. So I don't have a particular standard look and feel. I do it per the home.
Right. So my producer, he's always looking for the tagline for the podcast episode.
Yes.
Here's your tagline. Who is the buyer going to be? Because
right.
that's the thing I really appreciate about this stager is because,
I was going to put down stage or not stage.
Always stage.
yes, always stage.
Always stage.
Yeah, no, we can't use that. We don't want to give people that option.
Nope.
Because you're right. So, a lot of the properties we do has that empty nester. It might be attractive to an empty nester. I like to use that, or prime timer, better than the senior. So you're going to use different color palette
right.
for that as compared to some funky brownstone down in
Right.
in the fan. We're in the Richmond market, by the way, and the fan is a great area of Richmond. You should come visit.
Yes.
If you're a foodie, you especially want to come visit our area.
Yes. So
So-
if it's an ultra traditional home, you're not going to put a ton of modern furniture in it. It's just too much of a departure. So you
Right.
might go for transitional. You might go for transitional furnishings and more fun art, just to lift it up a little bit from its trend, from the style
and
that it is.
Flip side, in a modern home, you're not going to be sticking Queen Anne furniture
That's
in
right.
there.
That's
so,
right.
can you talk a little bit about cost?
Sure.
And
I'm an open book.
Yeah,
I really
so-
am. So for consultations, so we have different services that we provide. We do consultations that we go in, we meet with homeowners, and that's really to help them prep for either, it ends there because they can't afford staging or the realtor doesn't provide staging.
Right. And I think a
or-
lot of realtors provide this staging consultation
They
ideas.
do.
So what do you think the range?
So the range in
is-
Richmond is 125 to 250. So it really depends on how big the home is, how far out of Richmond it is, or in Richmond, and it really depends on if it's a luxury property or if it's kind of a mid-priced home.
Right.
So you're looking anywhere from 125 to 250.
Okay, so I did a little bit of research nationally just to get an idea, because this, again, we're in the Richmond market, but to give you an idea, I have seen, this is for a consultation only, $75 up to $750, depending on the market that you're in.
Right.
Obviously, luxury, where the average sales price is over $1 million, you're going to be at that higher end for a consultation.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
go ahead.
So I attend 2 conferences every year, and this is where I get information on what's happening not only nationally but globally, and I love it. It's the way I feel like I'm keeping myself up to date, and that's another thing you want to look into for your stager, is that they're constantly learning. So if they're not learning and seeing what's going on constantly, then I would question that, because we want to be constant learners. So these conferences, I learn about colors that are happening. I learn about trends that are happening. I learn about how to run my business better so that I can keep my costs down. So
what I'm hearing is a stager who's in the associations, who's going to the conferences, they might be a little bit more pricier than your friend who's trying to get into the business down the street, and you just really like the way their house looks, so you ask them to do your listings. So, you know,
Well, not
you
only
get what you pay for.
That's right. And somebody who's really considered a professional, they're usually having a warehouse. They have insurances. They have trucks.
Insurance.
They have
And insurance is important, because what happened, and see, I had a stager once upon a time when I first got into business who did some damage in a house.
Right.
And I asked her after, because of course the owner was furious, and I asked her, well, you have insurance, right? And she's like, no, I don't have any insurance. So she refused to cover the cost of any of the repairs.
that's sad.
Guess who covered the cost? Of
Yes.
course I did. And then I learned my lesson. So
Right.
yeah, insurance is important. You get what you pay for.
Right. I've had to replace a floor before because a piece of art that had glass fell. Don't know why it fell, but it fell, and it damaged the floor. It was a soft wood, and so I had to repair that, and that is pricey.
Yep.
So
So no 3M.
no command. Will not use
Nails.
I have a lot of builders who are like, you're not putting holes in my walls, are you?
Yes,
I'm like, yes,
yes, I
I
am.
will be. Yes, I will be. After you have to replace a floor, you don't use command strips anymore.
Right. Yeah. So that's the consultation, kind of that
Yes.
125.
Sure. So occupied staging, if let's say they have all the furnishings and you're just providing kind of the wow factor, pillows, art, some
The zhuzhing.
decor, the decor, you're looking at anywhere, depending on the number of rooms. I do like a 4-room staging, just accessories, anywhere from $875, to $1,000 to come in, and it's all the bedding, the art, the lamps,
So
everything.
what do you think the range is in our particular
Sure.
market for that type of
Well,
service?
first of all, there's not a lot of stagers who do occupieds because it's much harder.
Yeah.
And you can't have your brand because you're dealing with their overstuffed brown leather sofa that's from
Where the dog has scratched it,
Right.
and there's a big crack down the middle of it.
So you're just trying to I don't want to put lipstick on a pig.
No, that's
but
what it is.
It can be that. It can be
It's
that.
hair bows in the hair. It's lipstick on the pig. It's
Yes. So
cherry on the cake.
that's right.
Icing on the cake.
That's right.
Cherry on top.
So in Richmond, there's not a lot of people who do that. So it's kind of a niche market for us. It's really anywhere from like $975 to $1,500, depending on how many rooms. So and that's just bringing accessories.
Right.
For vacant stagings, which we have much more control of, all the stagers love a vacant staging. The profitability is better in a vacant staging. Everything is smoother in a vacant staging unless the property has not been professionally cleaned. That we oftentimes walk into vacant homes that are just really dirty.
Do you have a cleaner? Do you have people, or do you?
No, usually the cleaners are supposed to come before we come. That's in the contract, and we have had to cancel.
So a good stager will remind, and the listing agent will remind that you need to have it cleaned.
Yeah, I have a cleaning third party company that I use for, because I have if you're not staging or get to a house and it's not done, and I'm like, okay, and then well, I can't find anybody. I'm like, well, I have somebody. So but the cleaning is huge part of it.
Huge. I don't like to put my things on dirty counters, and we're not a cleaning crew. We're time is money. We're there for a particular time, and sometimes we have 2 stagings in the day. So we do not clean, but I have had to cancel. I mean, when I walk in and there's contractor tools and siding and all of that in the living room, we don't unpack our truck. We go home. So we're professionals, and we need things to be set so we can do our job appropriately.
Right.
So
what do you think that range? Excuse me. I know that's going to be huge, but what's a best case to a worst case? So for example, you and I, we often do the 3-bed 2-bath rancher.
Yes.
And the range that I've seen for that is anywhere from $1,400 to $2,500 for something like that.
That's right.
When you're talking about your standard 3,000 square foot house,
that's right.
You really, I don't feel like you need to stage the entire property. I like the high impact spaces. So then we're really hovering around that $2,000 to $2,500 range.
Yeah.
And then the luxury, what are we talking for a luxury
we've done
property?
a luxury property for upward of $6,000. I know, in other areas of the nation, it's much more than that.
Yes. So again, I did my little research, and for a smaller, 1,500 square foot property, you're looking anywhere from $1,200 to $3,000.
That's right.
And for your 3,000 square foot property, you're looking at about $1,800, anywhere up to $5,000. And then in the luxury arena, because that's a higher end furniture.
Absolutely.
You're not putting in stuff that you picked up at the Goodwill. This is high end furniture.
It's high end.
So then you're really talking about minimum $3,000, but most likely hovering. And I've seen up to $15,000, $20,000 for that.
Absolutely. But in luxury properties, there tend to be more great rooms. So instead of a sofa, 2 ends, coffee table, couple chairs, console table, you're having to do multiple seating areas in those spaces.
Right.
So, you really have to be.
And you have vaulted ceilings,
That's
so you
right.
need a lot more artwork. You've got more surfaces in the kitchen. Kitchens today are 4 times the size they were 10, 15 years ago. So there's a lot of area to do.
Right.
So I want to start to wrap things up. So what do you want us to know? What do you want to leave us with?
Goodness. Your audience are realtors or?
I hope it's anything and everything.
Okay. Well, I guess it is
sellers, realtors, other stagers who might be listening.
So we didn't really talk about staging in various markets. I think what I'd want to leave you with is staging has a place in any market. In any market, you want to stand out. Whether there's tons of competition.
Now see, here's your stage or no stage tagline right here.
I'm telling you, it's going to click. It's going to click.
You want to stage in any market because you want to stand out from your competition. And if you don't have a lot of competition, you want, when that buyer comes in, to immediately fall in love. That's how you get them, is the emotional attachment. As soon as they can start visually moving their items into that house because of how you've staged it, you've got them. They will throw money at a property to get that property. So, there's lots of stagers like, the housing market. I'm like, don't worry about it. We really do have a place at the table in any market.
Yeah, when the market's great, I still continued to stage, even though a lot of my competition didn't. And the reason I did was, first of all, I'm going to get you an even higher price because of that emotional attachment. But secondly, I need the house to appraise.
That's right.
And appraisers are supposed to be objective, but let's face it, they have emotions, they have eyes, so they also can be impacted by the staging.
Absolutely.
So, I had a lot fewer properties that didn't appraise than a lot of my colleagues, and I totally 100%. 90% believe it was staging. 10% was me providing comps and other information. But it's important in that market. And then now that the market is, dare I say, cooling, it definitely has a seat at the table for any priced home at all. What is your favorite color right now for a front door? For a front door.
Oh, for a front door.
Inquiring minds. Because I am so sick of seeing the same. I'm kind of getting sick of the Tiffany blue that I'm seeing a lot
Or
of.
the agreeable gray and the
Interior, yeah. So what's your favorite color for the front door?
The colors of the year this year, there's a ton of greens. So I'm kind of partial to green. You have to pay attention if you have black shutters or, pay attention to your shutters on determining which color
Now,
green.
are you talking Kermit green? Are you talking forest green?
It's all over
or
the place
anything?
this year. It's a lot of like foresty colors. There's even some minty colors that are color of the year, but it's really green. It's very shaded. So they're not a lot of bright. It's very shaded. So I was surprised at how many vendors had green in their palettes. So I would say, I want something that's going to be tried and true and kind of keeping up with the time. So I would say kind of a mid green.
I've seen oranges.
Yeah.
I've seen oranges.
Well, my favorite is pink.
Yeah.
I love a blush, a pink front door, especially if it's a gray house.
Yes,
I think
that's
pink
beautiful.
or a yellow pops. Yeah. All right, I got a couple more questions to
I'd love
ask
it.
you. So we want to know, what is your favorite podcast? You don't have to say this one. So what's your favorite podcast?
Okay, so I'm probably one of the few people that don't listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, so this is your favorite.
It is my favorite.
Talk Pretty Real Estate.
That's right. I'm usually listening to a book on tape, and it's usually some kind of...
Okay, that's our next question.
Okay.
So Talk Pretty Real Estate's our favorite podcast.
Yes.
Gift card is in the mail. What is your favorite real estate or business book?
Yes. Okay.
So tell us.
So the one that changed my life, my business life drastically, and I learned it in... I learned about it in some of the conferences I was going to, but it took me almost 2.5 years to actually buy the book, read it, and implement it, was Profit First. That changed how I did business.
Notes. That's going to go in our notes.
Yeah.
Tell Eddie plug that right there.
Eddie. Hi, Eddie. You're going to put that in our notes.
It really changed how I did business because most people who are in interior design or staging or redesign love it because of the creative aspect.
Is it only for stagers or can...
No,
so
it's for
and
anybody
it's
who has
Profit
a business. Profit
First. You remember the author?
Mike
never remember the authors.
Michalowicz, I believe.
Okay.
So
We'll have it in the show notes.
yeah, it's good for anybody who has a business because when you first start out, especially for us creative types, we want nothing to do with the business side of it. Now, I have a sort of a business background, so I know spreadsheets, things like that. But I really wanted to focus on the fun stuff. Profit First teaches you how to pay yourself, where most stagers, when you go to these conferences, they'll be like, I keep sinking all my profits into more inventory.
I was saying, yeah, they like to shop.
Yeah, we like to shop and we want to keep up with all the trends. So this teaches you how to be a business person, and you set up different accounts and you divvy up every penny that comes in into these different accounts based on percentages. It changed everything. All of a sudden I had money to pay my taxes. All of a sudden I had, money to pay me. And that my husband was just like, okay, are we going to get money out of this job sometime? I'm like,
do you find it hard to jobs that you turn down? They're like, but it's because it is money leaving on the table or something like that. You're like,
no, not anymore.
Yeah.
The jobs that are meant for me will come to me, and we're busy. So we're busy.
I can attest to that.
Yeah,
She's
we're busy all year long, and I like to think it's because the quality and the communication and the professionalism that we provide.
Yeah, I mean, when the market has been incredible, as we know, for the last 3 years, and God help anybody selling a home warranty. Because I saw a lot of those salespeople leave the business.
Yeah.
A lot of lenders have, now that the interest rates have changed, the refi business is gone.
Right.
So, there are certain businesses that go away, and but she was busy the entire time.
Right.
I had to struggle to get a spot with her because she's busy. That's what you want, a stager who is running a business, not a stager who just likes the creative aspect. You need
wants
it all.
to do on the side gig or
Right.
something.
Yeah,
Right.
you need the whole kit and caboodle. And the same with a realtor. If a realtor is not running a business, then they can't afford to provide you with staging or the professional photographer or video or drone photos or sunset photos or any of these extra things.
Right.
They don't have the money to do it because they're not running a business.
That's right.
So you need any aspect of real estate. You need to, any service you pick, it's got to be a business and run well.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the type of books I listen to on
That's a good one.
Audible. Is I listen
So-
to business books just because I
glad
don't
to
really
hear
like
that.
I don't really like to read, and when I read, I want to do other things.
Well, okay. So one of the things that we're doing on our podcast is a business book that I've read that I love and has helped me. I'm going to be gifting to our guest.
Oh, cool.
So today we are gifting Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is so hot that my husband, who's a boring IT guy, sorry, honey, but you are, he's like, what is that? That sounds interesting. And he picked it up and he read it cover to cover in 2 days.
Really? Okay.
Yes, my nerdy little
I'm
IT
going to
husband.
give you my word that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read it.
Well, he quotes this book to my kids all the time at dinner. And I did do a little,
I
little
love that.
inside from us
I love
here at Talk Pretty. Last question.
Yes.
What is your favorite charity or nonprofit that you like to donate to?
My favorite is Habitat for Humanity. I love that organization because they're trying to provide homes to people who can't otherwise afford them. And I'm in the home business. They're in the home business. I give all of our old items to them so that they can sell the items and make money so that they can help people.
Okay,
we've
so-
even
Well, Beth is
staged-
donating $100,000 to that today as well.
Maybe over time, not today.
it's a great organization.
So Habitat for Humanity, we'll have that in our show notes too, but we encourage you to make a quick donation to Habitat for Humanity in your local community. They're everywhere. They're everywhere across the country. So make that donation. This is the time of the year we really need to give back, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being
so
a
welcome.
guest
Thank
on
you
our
for my
first
gift.
episode, and you did great, and thank you. And if you're in the Richmond market, great stager, highly recommend. If
Plug the info. Plug your info.
yeah, tell us how we reach you. What's your website and phone number?
transformationsbyjill.com.
It'll be in the show notes.
You can reach me same way on Facebook. My website is up to date. Our Facebook is up to date. We do have
She's
a
on
Twitter.
Instagram,
We
too.
are absolutely. So we only do a few social media outlets just because we're busy. So, but we hope you love it.
We do, and we will have all that in the show notes.
Wonderful.
If you are somewhere else in the country, find that stager, especially if you're in the real estate world. If you're a realtor, you need to get that stager going. If you're an investor, by the way, you need a stager because you don't want to put your empty house on the market after you've flipped it or you've gotten the tenants out. You want a stager to come in and showcase that for you. More money in your pocket. We're all about bigger pockets, right?
That's right.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you liked what you heard, we would love a review. If you didn't, come back, listen again. We would love to win you over, and we look forward to having you on our next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.
You've just been listening to Talk Pretty with host Beth Pretty. If you have questions or would like to suggest a topic for an upcoming episode, reach out to Beth on Instagram or Facebook at Pretty Properties VA. For more information about Beth and her team, visit prettypropertiesva.com. The Talk Pretty Real Estate Podcast is a production of Studio 77. Visit rvastudio77.com for more information.